Now, I had said the last video was our final thing that we were going to build today, but now, reporting to you live from 5 years in the future, in 2026, we have a new operator family inside of TouchDesigner, which really builds on the ideas we looked at in the last section where we were looking at SOPs and how those are used for 3D inside of TouchDesigner. Well, let me tell you, do I have some fun news for you. The new family of operators takes the SOPs, accelerates them on the GPU, which means now they can scale and be run in real time a lot more effectively than SOPs could. And you'll see with even just a few nodes, you can make really compelling 3D environments, content, and systems. So let's go ahead and I'm going to delete this example I have here. You're going to see we're going to import a point cloud of a banana, hook it up to a particle system, add some noise and some feedback, and then even give it this fun Plexus effect, all with just a handful of nodes. So I'll go ahead and delete that, and I'll start from the beginning here. Now, when we're talking about this new family of operators, we are talking about POPs, which are the point operators. Like I said earlier, these are essentially kind of in the same mindset of the SOP family, which is that we are working in a 3D environment with 3D data. The difference between POPs and SOPs, which I lovingly refer to SOPs as UNC and POPs as nephew now, POPs are all running on the GPU, whereas SOPs used to run exclusively on the CPU. They would get really slow and tax your system very quickly. So you might try and do something with a particle SOP, find out that after 5,000 or 10,000 particles, all of a sudden your frame rate is starting to drop. With POPs and all of the advancements in GPUs that we have now, you're going to see how far we can push even basic laptops. So to get started with this example, I'm going to use something called a point file in POP. And this is a really fun operator because it works similarly to a movie file in top, except that it's built to take in these special files that have point cloud data inside of them. So if I extend my parameters here, I'm looking at this file called banananorm.ply, and this is inside of my TouchDesigner samples folder here. And by default, it's going to have already the positions selected, the normals, and the colors. But you can always click on these different triangles on the right side here and see all of the different attributes inside of this file. So this single PLY file here is holding X, Y, Z positions, normal X, normal Y, and normal Z position. And if you're new to 3D stuff, a normal you can think about is just which direction is this point pointing in 3D space? You know, is the point pointing up, down, on the x-axis, across the y-axis? So that's kind of our normal. And this is used a lot for lighting calculations. And then you can also see we have R, G, B, and A. So we also have points that are colored. And all of these are already mapped for us, so we don't have to stress too much. We can go on to the next step. But I also like looking at some of these because these are quite beautiful point clouds. You can do a lot of these now quickly and easily with a tool like Luma.ai or Polycam on mobile devices, where you just take a bunch of pictures of something and it'll give you a 3D point cloud like this. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this into a particle pop. And particle pop is going to have some features that are shared with particle SOP, but a lot of it is quite different. So let's look through what we can do even with this particle pop. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start turning up the amount of points, because that's really one of the most valuable and fun things about our pops. So right now, if I middle click on this particle pop, and if you don't have a middle click, in the parameters, you can left click on the eye. I have 100 points right now in existence of a maximum of 1,000. So let's turn this quite a bit higher. So if I look in my parameters under the particles page, I have my maximum particles here. So let's set this to maybe 10,000. And then the birth rate, I can see over on the right side, the units here is in seconds. So how many am I birthing per second? Let's birth 1,000 per second. And then with a life expectancy of 10 seconds, If I middle click on this again, we'll see that this fills up all the way to 10,000 points. And you can see these cook times here, which we haven't really covered in depth, but if you go look at our optimization workshops or some of our more intermediate workshops, you'll see that this number is a really efficient value for 10,000 points. And just to prove that point, we can see this is at 0.2 milliseconds of CPU cook time and 0.08 GPU cook time. Let's cook this up to 50,000, and let's turn our birth rate up to 5,000. And you can see as we start to quickly increase our number of points, the amount of processing power we're using for this relatively stayed the same. And that's really the beauty of working with POPs. Is if you tried to make a particle SOP with 50,000 points, you would be looking at a much, much, much heavier situation than this. And you can see even on my laptop, I'm still holding 60 FPS. And later we can come back and crank this up for fun. So now I've got a lot of points here on the surface of this banana. The two things we're going to do is, one, we're going to add a fun Plexus effect, which is something you've probably seen from Notch or in other content creation tools, which used to require a bit of GLSL or some really complicated fancy top networks to make happen. But now with our pops, we can create something called a proximity pop. And this proximity pop is amazing because all we do is plug our particle into our proximity, zoom into our content here. And now there's so many lines happening that we actually can't see anything. So I'm going to even come up to my parameters here for my proximity. I'm going to start turning my maximum distance down. And you can see as I turn it down, less and less items get connected. And now I can get a much more clear understanding of what is being connected, who's being connected, and I can start to turn this slowly back up. And you can play with these parameters. So for example, you can make this quite richer. You can make it so that there's less short connections and more long connections. So that can be a fun kind of look to set up. Obviously, doing some of these things might change your performance. So move sliders carefully and gently, as I always say. But you know what? Somewhere around here seems quite interesting. I can even turn up the maximum lines per point. So right now, each point only gets 3 line connections. But let's see, what if we do 5? We almost start to get this kind of mesh being formed in real time. And again, the real benefit of these pops and why they're so exciting for developers is not only are we emitting 50,000 particles, we're also doing this real-time calculation for this Plexus effect and creating this connection geometry, and we're still running at 60 FPS here. Now, we want to give this a little bit of movement, of course, because having particles move is a lot of fun. So what I can do is make a little bit of space in between my particle and my proximity here. And one of the really fun things that the particle pop has is the ability to just make a feedback loop directly with itself. And what I mean by this is you may have seen this in, if you've done some fluid simulation tutorials on YouTube, or you've seen other complicated, simulations, whether they're fluids or particles, this idea where you can take a little bit of noise. And when I say a little bit, I mean a tiny, tiny bit of noise, and every frame add it back to the particle positions so that they get this really nice organic movement, away or, through space. And it's a very, very good look. And it's so easy to do now with particle pop because we have this target feedback loop pop parameter. Now, to use this, and I know it sounds complicated on paper, you'll see it's quite easy. All we have to do is put an operator after our particle pop and then drag that operator back onto this target feedback, so it essentially creates a little mini feedback loop here. So what I like to do as a very simple example is the one I mentioned. So we're going to right click on this wire, we're going to hit insert operator, and I'm going to find my noise pop. And when I make my noise pop, it's going to deform my banana here. And what I'm going to do is Like I said, go back to my particle pop, left click on it so I can see its parameters. And then I'm going to drag and drop my noise 1 onto this target feedback loop pop. And you can see once I do that, it's going to go crazy. And that's because the amount of noise we're adding is quite a bit. And when you're working with feedback loops, you always want to just incrementally add a tiny bit of force or values into that system. So a quick way we can kind of tame this a little bit is we can go to our noise pop here. And we can see even amplitude of 0.1 is quite aggressive. So I'm going to turn this all the way down to, you can see somewhere around 0.08, 0.01. These very, very, very small value ranges are quite nice. And you can see that gives us this almost space nebula style effect. And the fun thing with this is the different types of noise will actually have very different characteristics and visualization. So this is a really fun effect you can set up, and then you can try switching between the different types of noise to see, oh, what does this noise look like in comparison to this noise? So this is a really fun effect. I definitely like it quite a lot. You'll see it's used very, very commonly in our industry. So now that I got this, we can go back to our Plexus effect, because now we might want to change some of these parameters because we're not constrained within just a small banana. We got particles flying around. So I'm going to center up my camera here. And what I'm going to do is start to turn up this maximum distance again. And you can see now we're starting to make these much more active Plexus effects. And you know what? I might even turn up the minimum distance too, because a lot of the times you don't want points that are right next to each other connecting. It often just ends up making things a bit messy. And let's see if we just keep turning up this, what kind of looks we can get. And of course, you can play with this to your heart's content. But you can see just with these 4 nodes, we brought in a banana 3D with all these kind of attributes, generated 50,000 particles off of it, created a nice, simple feedback loop where we're applying this tiny, tiny, tiny bit of amplitude here. So this tiny amount of simplex 4D noise, which then gives it this cool shape and feel. And then what we did is say, hey, you know what? Let's connect these with our Plexus effect. And even, you know what? I might go a little bit more. Yeah, something like that might be nice. And all of this is running in real time at 60 FPS on my laptop. That is the power of Pops. And I did promise that we would crank up this particle system and see how far we can push it. So right now we're at 50,000. You know what? Let's try 100,000. And to get there, we also need to birth 10,000 particles per second. And you can see we've doubled the amount of particles. We're up to 100,000. Still everything running at 60 FPS with our feedback, with all of our Plexus. And if you have a nice GPU, you could push this into the millions. So I'm going to put that up to 1 million, and I will emit 100,000 particles per second. And you can see now we're starting to slow down my laptop, which is also recording. So you have to find the limits of your own system. But the best thing about these Pops is how far you can push these real-time 3D systems. So if you're interested in learning about Pops, you can also check out our Pops Fundamentals 101 and 201's course that go much deeper into this, because I showed you about as easy as an example as we can make here. But as you start to get into Pops, attributes and attribute processing starts to become a really, really deep part of it. And if I can leave you with one trick, it's to think about each one of these Pops as an operator that's manipulating an invisible spreadsheet. And a good way to even visualize this is to use something like a pop to dat. And these spreadsheets of attributes are what we are working with on every single operator. So if you start to think about, hey, I have this spreadsheet, all these different attributes and data points. How do I want to process each one of them? How do I want to compare and contrast them? How can I take one of them and put it into the other one? A lot of POP workflows are centered around this idea. So with that said, that's a quick introduction to POPs, the newest operator family, which everyone is very excited for. And I hope you're going to enjoy diving in them as well.